welcome back. My name is Andy, and today we will be talking about my high school experience. Let's start off with freshman year. I walk in, and my first period class is GRTC. I had no idea what GRTC was. All I knew it was great for leadership opportunities, and of course I had my other classes. But I don't feel like I was able to make the same connections and friendships I did in the other clubs and organizations I was involved in. But going back into GRTC was a huge part of my high school experience. I did it for all 4 years. And as a freshman, the first thing I did was in their drill team. There were 5 female upperclassmen, and there were 5 male classmates from all grades. And this is an important detail because I think a month had passed by, and I already had a nickname. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what this nickname meant until Alice told me, and I still didn't fully grasp the concept of what it was. But the nickname, I'm not gonna say what it is because I don't want the video to get flagged, but basically it refers to a girl in anime that is short and seen in a very inappropriate way. And like I said, I didn't fully grasp what this meant. I didn't see an issue with it because I didn't fully understand. 2 other girls had the same nickname, and I didn't find this out until later. I didn't have an issue with it until I had issues with this guy. This guy was his senior. We're gonna call him Julius. Julius was a senior, and every single time he saw me, no joke, every single time he saw me, he would ask about my toes. And he would say it was a joke. But every single time he saw me, honestly, it made me uncomfortable because it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like he was so serious about it. And of course, most of the female upperclassmen would defend me and everything, but that didn't stop him. And we would take the metro together. I would sit next to my friend Eddie, and Eddie would get off 5 stops before I did. As soon as Eddie would leave, Julius would go and sit next to me. And sometimes I would put my foot where Eddie was sitting, so Julius wouldn't sit next to me, and Julius would see my foot there, and he would be pissed. That I didn't want him to sit next to me. And I got mad at one point, and I confronted him, and I was like, listen, your jokes aren't funny, you're not funny, you're very offensive, and you're making me uncomfortable, and you're an awful person. No girl's gonna like you like this. Julius, of course, was offended, and he told me, he's like, oh, you don't understand, my mom doesn't like me, my dad doesn't pay attention to me, and this is my last year as a kid. I want to have fun in my last year, and I don't even know what I'm going to do after high school. And Loki, I think I was gaslit. I just ignored him. After that, I just didn't know what to say. I just ignored him. I tried to avoid him at all costs. I didn't leave the team because he was senior. I knew that he was going to leave after that year, and I didn't want that to ruin my experience with drill team, you know. And of course, the girls started leaving one by one, probably because most of the guys were sexist and they thought their jokes were funny, but they in fact were not funny. They were truly offensive. I was able to compete twice that year. At that time, I met Emily, but we weren't really friends. I knew her, she knew me, but we didn't really talk. And there was also this other girl who I was friends with. I thought we were friends, but it turns out she was talking a bunch of stuff whenever I wasn't around about me. And so I just cut her off because, friendships like that, why have them? Then, the pandemic hit, and sophomore year. We still had online school, and I know online school affected a lot of people, but honestly, I was thriving during online school. My GPA went up. I had a schedule. I took it a 9 to 5, and for context, I was the only child for a very long time, and I like being alone. I didn't really have any close friends, so I didn't see a need to go out until April and March, where JRTC said, hey, you need to come to school because you're still gonna compete. So we didn't compete in person, we competed online. I had my laptop out, I had my uniform, and I just looked ridiculous because I had to stand in attention, and somebody would inspect my uniform. I don't even think they really looked at it because of the pixels in the camera. But anyways, I'm going back to school to train for this competition, right? And there I became closer with Emily, and I became closer with this guy who was in drill team, who was now a senior. We're gonna call him Frank. Frank and I became close romantically. he had a car and he would take me home, and then he started visiting, and he would then visit with his friends. My house is basically a hangout spot, which one of his friends he would bring over all the time was Julius. Julius, that should be my first red flag, because if a guy likes you, he's not gonna be hanging out around people like Julius. Julius is not gonna be coming over. Like, he's not gonna let Julius be coming over. Like, during this time, after we secretly started dating, I think I was 16, I started waking up nauseous. I would have morning sickness, basically. I would have heartburn, acid reflux. I was vomiting every morning, and my parents thought I was pregnant. I thought I was pregnant, but I thought it was the next Virgin Mary, because I'd never had sex. Because I never did anything. I was still a virgin, and I was oh, maybe God did another miracle, But turns out I had gastritis, because my body was telling me that this God was not for me, and I didn't listen. And another of the red flags should have been when we went out to eat. He and I went out to eat, and he invited his friends, right? His friends were there, and of course one of his friends was Julius. We were eating, and Julius looks at me and tells me, "Andrea, if you had an OF, I would be your #1 fan." I look at Frank. I look at Frank. Frank says nothing. I honestly said nothing. I need a ride home. But I was in shock. I didn't see him the same after that, And I should have left him right then and there. Sophomore year passed by, and junior year came. Junior year, we went back to school. We had to wear masks and everything. I was still with Frank. I don't know why. Because I find out that the person who came up with that nickname, I thought it was Julius. Julius never came up with that nickname. Frank came up with that nickname. He said he saw me and he thought of the nickname. And I don't know why I dated him. I don't know. I was young. Ladies, don't date anybody who disrespects you. But anyways, he would take me home. He would take me to school every morning. And every time we hung out, I still had those stomach aches, that acid reflux, the heartburn, and everything. And towards the end of our relationship, we would be in the car, and he would completely ignore me. One thing about me, I love to talk. I talk nonstop. And he would just ignore me. And I was oh. And I would just sit there awkwardly. And I hate being ignored. I absolutely hate it. And I finally got him to tell me what his issue was. You know what his issue was? He had an issue with my father, because apparently my father didn't pay enough attention to him. My father didn't respect him or something like that. And my last straw was when he said that I should put my relationship with him above the relationship with my parents. And I was no, we're not married. I'm not going to put you above my dad, because I knew the real issue was with my father. He kept on making excuses, and I was look, you don't even try to get along with my dad. My dad tries to talk to you at the dinner table and you ignore him. And his excuse was that he was raised to not talk during dinner, and so he wasn't going to change for my dad. And I was okay, let's break up. And we broke up. I had other things to focus on. I had NHS, GRTC, I decided to join HOSA, and I didn't join Key Club yet. But NHS, there was this teacher. This teacher loved taking power trips, and specifically on female students. I wasn't the only one who complained about the fact that he was mean, he was rude, he was hostile. Every girl I know that was in NHS would say that he was rude. But whenever I would talk to a guy about it, he'd be oh no, he's the nicest man I've ever met. He's so funny, blah, 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 blah. I swear. During this year, I became closer with Emily, even closer with her after spring semester started, when I was broken up with Frank. After a while, I met Calvin, and I saw him at the bus stop, and I was you know what? I want to be his friend. And I approached him, and I started talking to him. I literally talked to him nonstop. I would be on the bus stop, I would sit right next to him, and I was just talking, and this guy would just listen. Calvin was just listening to whatever I was saying. He would comment every once in a while, but he genuinely was listening to whatever I was saying, and I was talking nonsense. And let me tell you what, after we started texting, my gastritis was gone. My gastritis, I feel I was healthier, and I just didn't have stomach issues. I still have stomach issues, but not as bad as it used to be. Next thing you know, Emily, Calvin, and we started skipping our classes. It was towards the end of spring semester, and we started skipping our classes to play Monopoly. We had a little skipping spot, which the teacher knew we were there. and we would spend days playing one singular Monopoly game. And I don't even think we ever finished a Monopoly game, honestly. We never got in trouble. Well, I never got in trouble because I had good grades. My GPA was still good. I wasn't really like causing any distractions. Through Emily, that same year, I met Jaslyn, and we started skipping with her, but she was way more responsible. Honestly, sometimes we weren't even on campus. There was this restaurant like a mile away from our school, and we didn't have a car or anything like that, so we would walk that 1 mile to go to that restaurant. That restaurant is so amazing. It's a Vietnamese restaurant, and we would just go and then walk back to stay for practice. Then senior year came along. There were 6 fires started in my school. 6 fires. I don't know, like I don't know who started them, and there were a danger to the students and the staff members, but I don't think the school like cared that much, honestly. But it is what it is. Anyways, I applied to 2 universities. I got into both universities, but I ended up not going because of my financial situation, which really bummed me out. It really unmotivated me, and I found this out during spring semester, which was the time the skipping got to its worst. Emily learned how to drive, and she had a car, so we would just meet up in the student parking lot, and we would just leave the student parking lot, and the staff did not care. They didn't care at all. They didn't stop us, no nothing. And the worst part is that they started to care only at the end of the school year. Like, that was it. I was still in NHS, and during the spring semester, which was probably like the best and the worst semester of my senior year, during the spring semester, my grandma got run over, and I'm so serious when I say she got run over. Her leg was broken, and I had to take care of her. I took care of her on the weekends, and my mom took care of her on the weekdays. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'll take care of my grandma. Like, I have no issue with that. The issue I had was with the type of woman my grandma is. My grandma hates me. I mean this so seriously. My grandma hates me. I don't like my grandma. I don't hate her, but she hates me. To top it all off, I had issues with my NHS hours, and I hate talking to the NHS sponsor or whatever, because he, like I said, he was rude. And so I decided to record the conversation, and I was mentally prepared to get yelled at, to have that hostile energy, This man was so understanding. He was so understanding, and I truly appreciate the fact that he was so understanding. But it's like, why couldn't you be like this last year? And because I had to take care of my grandmother that hates me, my mental health worsened so much, and the skipping did get worse. I was out for weeks at a time. My grades were still good, surprisingly, because I would still be able to turn things in because they were mostly online. But I didn't care that much about school. We would go to so many places. We would go to the mall, we would go to the pool, the park. I think we even hiked once. Jasmine would, of course, join us sometimes, but she was way more responsible. So it was mostly just Calvin and Emily and me. Then, of course, prom season came around, and we all had dates. Calvin asked me to prom with a cheesecake. He baked a cheesecake, and he said prom, ? On the cheesecake, and I loved it because I love cheesecakes, and he knows I love cheesecakes, and he then also gave me a sunflower, which I absolutely love. I still have. And so my friend group and I decided that we were gonna rent a hotel room. We were all gonna pitch in and rent a hotel room. I don't know how my parents let me, but they did. And if you can rent a hotel room, I highly recommend it, with people you trust. So prom went checking into the hotel, going to raw sushi, taking pictures, going to prom, going back to the hotel, and that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all I can say. And of course, the next thing on my list was graduation. I was able to get away with so many absences because I told my mom that after 2 late classes, they call you as absent. And I think she chose P's and not questioned it. My dean, this is the time when my dean had an issue because, of course, it was like, am I going to graduate? I knew I was going to graduate, but for a glimpse, I was like, oh my god, what if I don't graduate? Because of my absences. But I was able to do attendance appeal. I did community service to cover those hours that I was absent. And so I was able to graduate then. But the issue my dean had was that I wasn't going to class. And so the school was losing money because many kids were skipping. Many kids were out of class. And so the school lost so much money. But I was okay. I ended up graduating with a good GPA and 32 credits, which is good. I think I missed half of my high school experience, and as I look back at it, I should have listened to my gut and I should have put more effort into my education. And I totally accept that it was irresponsible of me for leaving campus. It was irresponsible of me for skipping all those classes. But the staff didn't care where I was. I'm their responsibility once I enter school, once I'm on campus. And they didn't care. They only cared when they lost money. So I was lucky to make it back home every day, but I know some students were probably not as lucky as I was. I did pass with a decent GPA and, like I said, with more credits than I needed, but I missed so much educational time. But along the way, I met wonderful people like Emily, Calvin, and Jaslyn, who have supported me emotionally, and they've always been there when I need them. They're truly wonderful people, and all I can say is that you need to surround yourself around good people. Yeah, you're gonna have, it's not really important to have a huge friend group because you can't truly trust all the people you know, but surround yourself with close friends that you know are going to support you and that you can support them. I was lucky to be safe and to have a decent experience. So be mindful who you surround yourself with and put effort into your education. I feel like I could have put more effort and I regret that. But if you're entering high school, of course, put more effort. And if you're still a sophomore, a junior, you still have time. So hopefully you guys learned something from this, and comment down below if you have any questions. This is the end of my little story. Well, I don't think it was little, I think it was pretty long, but goodbye.